Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands with Kelly Bennett podcast. I am thrilled to have Stefanie Frank on this episode. She is the co-founder of Frankly Good Coffee, one of the amazing founders I get to work with in the Emerging Brand Incubator, someone who I've known for many years, over a decade at this point, who I've been a consumer of her coffee. I've been behind the marketing of her coffee when I was the creative director and partner of a restaurant that we exclusively sold her coffee, and now working alongside of her in brand strategy as she's building the business. So, Steph, thank you so much for being on.
You're welcome, Kelly. I cannot wait for this conversation.
Good. Well, let's dive into it because there's so much to cover. As always, I always want to start with a brand story. And yours is such a great story that goes back so long of how you've been building this brand over the years. So can you let people into the behind the scenes of when you first started Frankly Good Coffee?
My husband, Glenn, is an architect and residential designer, and he was laid off of his job at an architecture firm during the Great Recession of 2008, 2009. And so it was it was a conundrum, and it was frustrating. He had to decide what else he was going to do. So in the meantime, we went to Arizona to visit friends, and we went to a farmer's market, and we saw this guy roasting coffee in the back of his truck and bagging it and selling it. And we're like, oh, we could do that. So a month later, Glenn had gotten all the licensing. He bought a roaster, and he was set up at our first farmer's market, live roasting the coffee on site, bagging it, and selling it. We were by far the first in Las Vegas to do that. And I don't think anyone's doing that currently. I mean, people sell coffee at the markets here, but they don't live roast and then sell bags and then make actual pour overs at the market. So Glenn started all that back in 2011. Basically created a job for himself.
That is so cool. And again, I've been drinking Frankly Good Coffee maybe since then. It's been a while. And I remember the fact that you had this really cool setup with roasting coffee. When I used to curate markets in downtown Las Vegas, I would always ask you and be like, can you come with your setup? Because it was just also such a cool experience. So cut to now we're 2023. I know that you've kept the business going, even though you both had your own careers. This was a passion project, side business that is now really taken, has legs that you're really now growing. So can you walk us through, in 2011, you had this proof of concept. People really loved your freshly roasted coffee, the coffee you were sourcing, and now the business that you're building. Because I think that is such a great connection of showing how a brand builds and evolves over the years.
Oh, I agree. So in the LLC papers, we are co-owners, co-founders. So I was always, an owner of the business. It's owned by the two of us. And for years, I had a copywriting business, writing copy for websites and, stuff like that. I did that for 10 years. I had a good business going. And meanwhile, Glenn kept going to the farmers markets, and we created, or we had drawn to us, a community of people who loved the coffee. Like, they loved the coffee. They would say, oh, this is the only coffee I can drink black. And we had very rudimentary web presence back then, so people could order it. Then I got really sick of copywriting. To be honest, I was tired of dealing with clients. Yeah, I had great clients, but I never want to do client work again. So 2 years ago now, I decided to step in and take a bigger role because Glenn was getting more contracts for his design work, and he wanted to focus on that, and he wanted to focus on railroading. So I got in there, and I'm like, okay, the business has been solid and very small for all of these years. I need to do something to shake it up. So I started to work with you in the first version of your incubator.
Yes.
And the first thing we started to work on was the messaging. And since I had stopped my copywriting business and could focus on this, we were able to get going with it pretty quickly.
And I want to say too, you were also a lawyer.
Oh, right. So I was a lawyer.
Which is like, it's amazing that you also had that, just chilling on your resume that you were a lawyer.
Yeah, I was a lawyer from 1994 to 2006. And then I floundered around for like 3 years. And then in January 2009, I started my copywriting business. But the lawyer thing keeps coming in handy with writing. Mm-hmm. And at the end of 2021, we moved into a roastery at St. Jude's Ranch for Children. So we drafted a simple agreement and we are happily roasting down there. It's great. So yeah, I do as little legal work as possible now, but like when I review stuff, I totally know what to look for.
Is such a powerful thing to bring into a business. And I knew that about you. And that's why I wanted to just drop that, because I think it's a really great lesson for founders who may think, well, I have this background, but I don't know really how it could be applicable to what I'm building now or if it really matters. But I think your personal story is a really great testament of you can suddenly bring in other things that you've done into a coffee business, how you've been able to bring in all your other skill sets, and also working in corporate, being a lawyer, running your own business, you also needed good coffee. And so I really do love that piece of the puzzle. And I tell people, I'm like, these are from two corporate, an architect and a lawyer started a coffee business. And it really speaks to the need of just getting really good coffee. And that's why I always trust you of how you roast and how you create blends and what coffee you source, because I know you get the good stuff. You don't mess
up. Exactly. And well, Glenn learned all that because one of his strengths is he can jump into a new industry, learn it and do it, and he's up to speed as well as most, if not all, people in that industry. And so he's not in the business full time by any means, but he still helps me with the sourcing. He helps me with the ordering. He helps me with some compliance stuff that he's familiar with, like the health department inspects us every year. He helps with that. And then he will jump in and do whatever I need him to do.
You all have been such a great team. And again, being the partner of a restaurant where we exclusively served your coffee, I would see you all come and drop off coffee and have great conversations, and always so collaborative. We did lots of activations with co-working and just having fun with cold brew. And would make cocktails with the coffee, and just, Chef Donald also super creative, as well. So I always love that it was very human behind the brand, that we were able to just speak directly to who was actually roasting the coffee. And now cutting to 2023, you are full-time in the business. You opened up your own roastery, launched a new website, new branding, new messaging. You just came out with a new blend, and we totally planned this out so that we could record with this new blend in our hands. It's the Make Your Morning Suck Less. So I am just beyond proud of you. And also, I'm obsessed with this coffee. It is my new favorite of all the coffees of yours. And so I think this would be a really cool conversation, diving into a bit about why you did this blend and how you've been building it behind the scenes. And I know that you just did your launch party at Suzuya Patisserie in Las Vegas for it. That was a great success. So could you give us a little bit behind the scenes because this is a great example of a business that's been around for over a decade, but also emerging in a new chapter, right? And I think this blend really speaks to that emergence of your next chapter and how you're growing the business moving forward. So can you take us into it?
Yeah. in 2014, I got a text from one of my best friends and one of our most obsessive customers. Excuse me. His name's Brian, and he texted, "I love your coffee." And I texted back, "Thank you." And he said, "It makes waking up suck less." And I was like, "Oh, that's really good." And I posted the text on Facebook. Everyone loved it. And then fast forward to 2023, we are working on our messaging. And I was like, "Well, what about make your morning suck less?" Because I love that. So we created that as our tagline first, and it's on our website. And so with that being the core of our messaging, things got a lot easier and more fun, because when we were designing the new packaging with Kate of Folk Founded, we decided, oh, let's put it on the blue tape that we mail the boxes out with. So everyone who orders it gets a box with, and it says, "Make your morning suck less." And that was as far as it was going until we were thinking, what? And, a lot of this is you, Kelly, because as someone in the business, it's hard sometimes for me to see everything, but the conversation of a new blend came up. It's like, oh my gosh, let's make your morning suck less blend. And the tagline is already in trademark process with my lawyer, Danielle. And so we're splitting it into two, one for the tagline, one for the product. And then she came to our launch party to take pictures to submit to the patent and trademark. So it was really
that's cool.
Full circle. Because I said, "Make your morning suck less" is our tagline now. And it's going to be the name of our podcast when we launch that. Then I'm getting back to her and saying, "Well, we're making it a blend, and it's going to go retail, and it's going to go on our website." And so, so the trademark for all that is pending, and it should be done soon. But so that is so exciting, because it's the first blend that I've created. We have 3 other flagship blends that are all amazing that Glenn created, but I've never created a public facing blend before this one. And let me tell you, people love the name, "Make Your Morning Suck Less."
It's so good.
It's the best.
Can you give us a little bit of the behind the scenes of your sourcing and also how you created the blend? Because the amount of detail that, again, I'm able to see, because we talk once a week, and each week you were in another layer of the process. So I think people don't necessarily realize, and I'll be honest, I didn't even realize all the work that goes into making a blend and roasting coffee until working with you and seeing your business. So can you walk us through of how you chose the beans, how you found the perfect roast? I'm just going to open it now while you talk. It smells so good.
It's so good. It's just so good.
It really wakes you up.
So I did some reading. I read a lot about the industry, but I did some more reading, and I thought, because all of our current blends have like the same amount proportionally of beans in them. And that's, I guess, so the first thing I needed to do was to decide which bean would be the base. And at first I thought it was going to be Sumatra, simply because I personally love Sumatra. It's got a sweetness and an earthiness to it. And so I made a couple of different blends with Sumatra and then 2 other beans, and they were good. Overall, I ended up with 9 different samples. Because
I didn't realize it got up to 9.
Yeah, because I had Sumatra and then 2 other beans roasted at different levels. So each roast level counts as a sample. And it was okay, but I didn't love it. So then I thought, well, what about Guatemala as the base? Because Guatemala is another really, it's a hearty bean. It's got it has some heaviness to it, but it's not too heavy. It holds a medium roast really well. And I knew I wanted this blend to be a medium roast. And so I did one combination of Guatemala and 2 other beans, because I was kind of stuck on the idea of having 3 beans. And it was good. And I sent that one out for tasting just to some friends and customers, and Glenn and I tasted it, of course. And some of the feedback I got on it was really good. Like one person said, "Oh, this makes me feel like I'm just wrapped in a cozy blanket in front of a fire." And I'm like, "Oh, that's not what I want for a morning coffee." So I scrapped that. And then I thought, what about Honduras? Because we had a lot of Honduras green beans left that we had sourced from genuine origin. And I could talk more about them in a minute.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, Honduras is kind of unusual, and it holds a bit of a lighter roast, and it's got kind of aromas of green apple and stuff. And I thought, okay. So with the Guatemala being a little heavier, I wanted something that would balance that out. So I'm like, well, what about Brazil? Because Brazil, you typically will roast a little bit lighter. So I just picked these percentages out: 40% Brazil, 40% Guatemala, and 20% Honduras. And I roasted it at a light medium, which was good, and the medium that hit the jackpot. And that's what you have in front of you. It's got that kick. It's got
does.
everything we want in a morning coffee with, and nothing you don't want. Right? I mean,
It's true. It's not
yeah,
too acidic, right? Because
right.
that's what I personally don't like in most coffees. It's too acidic and you get that weird kind of taste in your mouth. Where this coffee, it has again, I've been learning from you on how to taste and smell. I get a nutty aroma with a bold feel to it, just by opening up the bag. It just feels like it will wake you up, which I really love. And when you're drinking it, it's bold, it's bright, it has some like chocolatey nutty notes, and it's also smooth and it's not acidic. And I really love that combo. And I'll be honest, I don't always find that combo when I order coffee out, because I don't use cream or sugar for your coffee when I drink it at home, because I do the coffee club. So I always have my deliveries. But if I'm out, I always get a latte, because I find that most coffees have either that burnt taste or super acidic taste, where yours does not. And I think that this blend in particular for the mornings, I could just say, because I was one of the first to get it as a happy early adapter, it really got my ass out of bed.
I know.
It was that push. I'm like, okay, just get to the stove to boil water and you're halfway there. And it really does have a nice way of picking you up, which is needed.
Yeah, agreed.
I love it. So you just did your launch at Suzuya, and they've been serving your coffee, you were just telling me, for 11 years. That's remarkable.
Yeah, they met the co-owner of Suzuya. They are a husband-wife team like we are. She discovered Glenn at a farmer's market, and she said, "I'm opening a cafe." And then I don't know how much time passed, but then she came back and she's like, "Yeah, I want to use this coffee." And so Glenn got them set up with their coffee service. He, he gave them input on the menu and recommended the equipment that they use. And yeah, 11 years later, they're serving it still. They're good people.
That's incredible. And they have been doing a great job of building their brand and their specialty of Japanese pastries and desserts. It's really it has a great reputation in Vegas.
Yeah.
And the fact that you both have your own specialties and crafts, and how you respect each other's work and how your products are complementary, I think is just also another great example of a solid brand partnership. When you can find another brand that is so complementary and you have longevity of over a decade now of a partnership, that's remarkable.
It really is. It really is. I mean, we watched them grow from being in a tiny space to moving into a nice, bigger space a few years ago. And yeah, they are great people. There's just, and they care about getting fresh coffee. That's,
Yes.
I asked her once, like, why do you love working with? And she's like, well, this is the freshest coffee I can get in this town. and and yeah, she loves to promote not only our brand, but you know her brand, and there's another brand that retails in there as well, not coffee or food, but flowers. They've got a wonderful aesthetic, and they're the whole package, and their baked goods and their breads are amazing.
I want to go there next time I come to Vegas.
I know.
I really need to take a road trip there. So you can now buy your coffee retail at Suzuya, which was such a big moment too of launching
Yeah.
retail.
Yeah.
And the fact that they serve your coffee as well, I think that's a great lesson learned for someone who's just starting out, as thinking strategically and starting locally and allowing yourself to grow from there, because you were able to build a long-term relationship. They serve your coffee. Now you are there retailed. You just did an activation of launching a new blend. That's a really great, solid plan for someone who's just starting out, of really practical ways of, when I say focus on brand partnerships and activating your brand and finding different ways to serve your product, especially in F&B. I think that's a really great tangible example of what that looks like in real life.
Yeah, it really is. It's practical, and it just takes into account the relationship that you have and that you build with your partners. That's the most important thing I have learned.
I was going to say, now that you've been in the business, you and Glenn started the business over a decade ago, and now that you're full time in the business, what has been maybe a lesson learned or a piece of advice you would share with someone who's just starting out?
Have enough of a vision and passion about your business so that you can really nail down your messaging and what's going to make you different. And you may have to work with someone to figure that out, because being inside the business, you can't see a lot of the time. I mean, the 9 years before we started working with you, I mean, there's a lot of times when we felt stuck in this long journey that we've had, because we would be frustrated about, how can we get new customers? How can we further our reach? I don't want to kill myself in this business. I want to work it without sacrificing everything to it. So right. Nailing the messaging will set you up for everything else. It'll set you up for getting any trademarks you might need to get. It'll set you up for getting a great website if that's part of your plan. It'll set you up for communicating with potential partners, and we're working on that currently, trying to get more partners and places where we can do fun activations. And in fact, that's what I would say. I would say work on your messaging. Even if you need to put it in your budget to hire someone to work on your messaging, it's that important.
I think that's a great, again, tangible piece of advice, because that's where so many people get stuck. And especially, I think your brand is also a great example of, you were first to market as far as roasting and serving such a fresh product.
Yeah.
And then coffee really exploded in Vegas. I could say that, having lived there for such a long time and working in business there, it really exploded. So I think that also is a really great testament of, great. So whatever you are doing, there is a lot of people doing it too. However, it's just that much more motivation and that much more of a need to really drill down what makes your product different, and being able to communicate that with confidence, because there's enough for everyone, and knowing what you do and what you do the best of what you do is such a powerful thing, one for the brand, but also as a founder, like you just said, of having that continuous passion.
Exactly.
And I think you're doing that beautifully.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
One thing I like about this business is that we're a roaster. We're not a coffee shop. I never
Right.
wanted to be that. Although when all the proliferation of coffee happened here, I'm like, am I gonna have to just be a coffee shop? And I never ever wanted that. And so
Mm,
I'm glad we never did that, even though, we've stayed small. And now looking back on it, I'm glad we've stayed small because we're very much an emerging brand with a lot of background. And that really, that really is powerful going forward for me as a founder, like you just said,
yes.
because, hey, we've been around
You've been
and
around.
we've got a great reputation.
Exactly. You have social proof,
Yeah, we have a lot of social proof.
which is you can't buy that and you can't
No.
fake that. So what is the vision for this next chapter, this next emergence of the brand?
I love that in part we are building a consumer facing brand, because I think consumers' responses to the coffee are so much fun. Like, oh, at our launch party activation, oh, I love the name. And then they would taste it. They'd be like, oh, it's so good. And we can play with things like labels and stuff like that and
Yep.
try new things. Yeah, that's a new label. That label is different from our other labels that Kate from Folk Founded design. So I love being a consumer facing company. And so we definitely plan to grow that. But also, there are more places in Las Vegas that want and need our coffee. And so we are going to full throttle go and find some more partners similar to Suzuya. Just to me, the vision is like smaller cafes who want to serve great coffee and who we can build relationships with. And
Yes.
also we have a vision for an office subscription, because with all the remote work these days and people having to come in the office for like a day, and they come in and they have coffee and they count that as their day in the office. I think we were discussing that would be a fun
Yes.
pitch to make to offices, like, oh yeah, here, entice your employees in and their mornings are going to suck less. What?
Totally. Or even like another
um
blend, like make your office suck less. Something
yes,
like that.
yeah,
You could play with so many things. And that's, again, what I love about you and just knowing your personality. You also, we didn't even touch upon this, you do improv comedy as
yeah,
well. And so and your last name being Frank, and that it's frankly good, and the dry wit and sense of humor that you personally have, and then it also plays with the name. To me, because you're also such a creative person, the brand has exponential amount of opportunity to play and get creative and try new things, and that you're open to that. And that's what I personally look for in a founder. I'm like, okay, they get it. They're down to experiment and test and see where this could go.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I think we've just started infusing the
Mm-hmm.
brand with that, I guess, irreverence, that messaging, that funny dry wit, dry humor, as you
Yes.
say. And yeah, and then retail is a whole, like, we have the great thing about Suzuya is that, like, we're able to test new things. Like, we're testing that
Right.
new label. It does way stand out more on the shelf. And so we're going to get that data and we're going to analyze it. And then we're going to do more retail.
I am obsessed
I
personally.
know, me too.
I
I am
really
too.
I really love seeing the trajectory of your growth and just seeing the behind the scenes. Where can people shop this incredible coffee?
They can shop it on our website, franklygoodcoffee.com. And if you are in Vegas, you can shop it at Suzuya Patisserie. They are on Buffalo and Warm Springs, very, very close to the 215. And yeah, that's where you can get it.
Also, I want to give a shout out the Coffee Club. I am a proud member of the Coffee Club, and you can get a subscription, 1 to 4 bags of getting this coffee shipped to your house each month. So you don't have to stress about running out of really good coffee. And it's really fun. Steph always has different curated finds that she has sourced ethically. Lots of female run farms, family owned farms. She roasts them, she taste tests, as you heard, and then she sends you her favorites of the month right to your door. And you don't know what you're going to get, but you just know that it's going to be damn good. And so I'm just going to shamelessly plug that because I personally love getting my packages. And everyone that I've turned on to it also says, thank you so much. This is really freaking good coffee.
Thank you so much,
You're
Kelly. Yeah,
so welcome.
the coffee club's my baby. I love picking the coffees that go in there every month and sharing the stories of the farmers and
Yes.
the people who produce behind
Yes,
these.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for being such a great founder, and also the message that you share and all the things that you've worked on. And I just appreciate the hell out of you. So thank you so much for being on today.
You're welcome, Kelly. I appreciate the hell out of you.
Love it. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.